is Michael McQuiston. I'm the technical director for the Minnesota Opera. Basically, I oversee most all of the technical aspects of the production, being scenery, props, lighting, sound. The way my wife puts it, if it don't breathe, I deal with it.
Well, typically once we've got through the process of really doing designs for a show, we have a design presentation, usually here, sometimes other locations if that's more convenient, where we get the scene designer, the costume designer, the lighting designer, and the director all together, and we go through the show basically to see where they have a model and costume sketches, and we can really go through the show step by step to understand what it's really going to look like.
The way I like to look at it is we collaborate. They'll give me a design. My job is to take that design and build it within the budget that I'm given, which is really where all the negotiation, compromise takes place between the designers, the design team, the director, and the opera shops.
And I think we always find, as we go through that process, that there are things that we might not quite like about what they're trying to do, and then we try to redirect that a little bit to get to more of a final design. We always try to work from within the constraints of the theater. I mean, we do have issues of both just physical space and then of the schedule that we have. So that does limit some of the things we can do. But we always try to stretch that in every direction that we can. Well, from the very beginning, we knew that we wanted to do all three of the Tudor operas. And our impulse was that the way we could do that was basically use the same set.
For the Tudor trilogy, it was quite challenging because the main aspect of that set was a huge ceiling that was suspended above the stage, like 27 feet, with a whole bunch of big scenery pieces flying in and out of that set constantly. So the big challenge was, A, how are we going to do this? And, B, how are we going to do this?
The fact is that it all happens in basically the same locales. Some of them exactly the same and some of them slightly different. So conceptually, when we hired a director and a design team, we basically said, we want to work kind of in one kind of language.
The designer came up with a Tudor rose, which was taken basically from history, and that is the one constant symbol that is throughout this whole set.
And the scene designer, Neil Patel, came up basically with this structure that allows us to use the same basic physical structure, but we swap out the materials so the walls look totally different even though they're the same structure.
But what we'll do between shows is change the color. All of these flying pieces, which you'll see in the color photographs, for one show will be one color, and what we've did is we've had big pieces of fabric printed with a different wallpaper look, and we'll change that for each show. So each show gets a different color and a different feel. Some of the other pieces will get a whole different set of artwork put on them. So it'll be the same set with a whole different color temperature and feel.
The great thing about the Tudors is that it has this fantastic gold ceiling, and that really kind of is the theme that carries us through. And then there are all these other pieces that drop out of the ceiling that change throughout the productions so that they're different, but they're still actually the same structures. In a way, the costumes are the same way, in that the choruses basically are the same through the whole production, and it's only the principals who are different who change from production to production.
All of the detail that we used on the ceiling, we actually did a vacuum form process, and then we sent that up to a shop where they actually have a big vacuum press machine, and they mount those molds on there, put a big piece of plastic on, hit the heat and a vacuum, and it vacuum forms all of the different shapes and everything like that. We basically decided to do that because anything else would have been too heavy. We would have added way too much weight to an already heavy ceiling. The ceiling actually weighs about 7,500 pounds when it's up in the air. So it's almost 4 tons worth of ceiling.
Everything moves from the sky. Everything comes from above. And typically when we fly scenery in and out, we can use the fly system in the theater. But because of the size of the structures and their shape, we can't use that system. So we have to find other ways to move those big pieces of scenery up and down. And that's been the biggest challenge for us, to do that economically, effectively, and quietly.
You wouldn't know it by looking at it, but it's all chain motors, and everything is hoisted up on chain motors and grids and trusses and all sorts of stuff. But the whole ceiling is built in a series of trusses that we've had to bolt together and fly up. And the hardest part was making sure our pieces flew in and out of these little holes without getting stuck or hitting anything or rubbing, and they come in smoothly. I mean, we're not used to things, you know, if you imagine, remember the old kid's toy you have with the little, you got to put the square in the square hole, and you know, and if we don't get that lined up right, it's like putting the square peg in the round hole. It just doesn't fit, you know. And with enough planning, I think we were able to do it quite successfully, and it worked out pretty well. It was probably one of the most complicated sets that we'd built in a long time. It actually turned out really well. I was quite happy and surprised with it.